Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Aisha, your host. Let's talk about mental health. Mental health is often seen as a taboo topic in many cultural and religious communities. Why do faith communities sometimes stigmatize mental illness? Does faith have a role to play in helping those with mental illnesses? Sheikh Yasir Fazaga is Imam of the Orange County Islamic Foundation in California and Director of the Mental Health Department at Access California Social Services Agency. We sat down with him at the Reviving the Islamic Spirit Convention in Toronto. Here are his thoughts on how communities can play a role in supporting people with mental illnesses. Sheikh Yassir, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me on your show.
So I understand that you have a background in mental health, and you also serve as an imam, so a community leader in the Muslim community. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your work as your area of focus in the field of mental health. Is this an issue that you find very prominent in the Muslim community?
Actually, mental health is not an issue that is related to any particular religion. We would say that mental health is an issue that is just part of being human. Now what happens is that different communities react to it differently. So there is a reaction within the Muslim community and the non-Muslim community, and again, different ethnic backgrounds and different cultures react to mental health very differently. So what we try to do in my work as a psychotherapist is that we try to bring in the academic practical element of psychotherapy, the principles of psychology, and then we try to present it way that makes sense, where our clients are actually able to use it and benefit from the coping tools and mechanisms that we offer them.
In the Muslim community, when it comes to even talking about things like depression or communication, it's seen as a taboo topic, right? And I understand that you do that. You serve it in the capacity of a therapist and a counselor in the Muslim community. So how are you finding that response, given the conversation that we just had right now, that it's not religion specific?
Right, but see, the stigma is not within the Muslim community. The stigma is in the overall society. And I usually tell people, you ask a group of people who's diabetic and who's on diabetic medicine, most people would not have a problem, putting their hands up. And you can ask who's on antidepressant, who's depressed, and very few people will put their hands up, because what we have done is that we have categorized diseases into good diseases that I can actually tell people that I have, and then there are diseases that are not so well that I really do not need anybody to know about it. So not only within the Muslim community, but religious communities have a tendency to look down upon mental health.
Why is that?
Because the belief is that we speak a lot about God, and God is supposed to be on your side. And if God was truly on your side, or you were on God's side, you should not be having these mental health difficulties. So as such, you have a lot of people within religious community who suffer in silence based on the assumption, the misconception that because you are religious, whatever religion it is that you belong to, you are inherently mentally protected. And that is not true.
So what is it from an Islamic perspective? What is the outlook when it comes to mental health?
Mental health is a challenge. It is part of being human. And sometimes what happens is that life is difficult. No scripture ever promised people that life was going to be easy. And now what happens is that how do we react to the challenges that life throws our way? We're looking into resilience, we're looking into susceptibility, we're looking into the person's ability to make use of the tools that religion gives them. But we also want to make sure that the people have access to professionals who can help them when other means fail, when they do not have the proper tools. And what we tell people is this: because you are religious, again, any kind of religious practice that the person is a part of, coming to a professional or going through mental health issues does not really downplay the importance of your reliance on God. You can really truly be relying on God as you are meeting with a therapist. So to me, coming to a psychiatrist or a therapist, by no means I am saying that God has failed me, now I need your help. And I think that is what religious people are afraid of. They're afraid that when they make these type of statements, when they reach out to professionals, I think they are assuming that God has failed.
How it's interesting you say that, because it's when someone has a physical ailment, you go see the doctor for help, and people don't associate that as, you know, failing God. But when it comes to this conversation, it seems like that's the discourse. I'm just wondering, can you comment a little bit about what role specifically Islam has, and what role religion can play in helping address issues like if you're going through depression or having communication issues?
Interesting. I mean, this is a really big topic, because remember, even the term psychology itself, initially it was the study of the spirit, and nowadays when you look into psychology, it is defined as the study of the mind, simply because prior to the European Renaissance, psychology really meant to study the spirit. But then the spirit became something that could not be quantified. And now that there is this scientific revolution, and how do you quantify spirit and how do you quantify spirituality? So we have resorted to studying the physical part of the mind that is concrete, that we can see, that we can tell, that we can measure, that we can do all these things. However, statistically speaking, we know for a fact, and this is not just, people in the religious community are saying, these are professionals in the field are saying, people who are more spiritual, people who identify themselves as religious, in mental health, they have got better coping skills, they are more resilient, they've actually reported better mental health status than people who were not. So we know for a fact, because religion does give meaning to life, regardless whether you agree with that meaning or you don't, but there is a meaning to life. And actually, different religious teachings, they make meanings not only of life, but of the different events, tragic events that happen to us in life. So there is that offering of a meaning that science cannot really offer to them.
Have you had any cases with when you're dealing with Muslims where, you mentioned that they have better coping mechanism skills? Are there specific aspects of Islam that you can speak to that, have helped in that case, whether it be prayer, whether it be reading, the Quran, the Holy Book?
Yeah. See, remember, as a therapist, I try to avoid linking their depression or their mental health because of their negligence of their religious practices. Because chances are that you may have a person who comes in and they're very, very practicing, they're very spiritual, yet they are going through these challenges. So I avoid making the assumption that because this is happening, there must be deficiency in how religious you are. Now, sometimes it may be their application of their religiosity, erroneous understanding that is impacting them negatively, which I will address it with them. But the way that I approach my own therapy is that I tell people, you are your own best therapist. And what we do in my counseling sessions is that after providing a safe place, which is the most critical aspect of counseling, 50% of clients do not come back to counseling after the first session because the therapist has failed to create that safe place for their clients.
What is the safe place like?
A safe place would be a place that is non-judgmental, a safe place where I value you, I validate you, I do not question what you are telling me. I may not approve of everything that you do, but I will accept you in my office unconditionally. There is no subject that you can bring up that would make me say, you know what, get out, I do not want to talk to you. So my facial expressions play a role. The words that I use, the tone of my voice, how I sit. So I want to make sure that when my clients come in, they find my space a place that is inviting to them, where they feel safe. Not only physically safe, but I think that people also want to feel that, you know what, I can trust this person with what I am about to say. And that is not something that, please trust me. I think that it is many things, beginning with the way that people sit, the proximity that I sit, the way that I greet them when they come in. So these are all statements that I'm constantly making. And then there is also part of verbal assurance. You know, whatever you share with me is confidential. I am a mandated reporter, and then I'll talk about the exceptions to that. So these are all things, like I make sure that I do my best to let the client feel safe. And sometimes as therapists, we fail to do this. And that is why 50% of our clients actually do not come back after the first session.
So what can we as a broader community do to help, address some of these issues? Obviously not all of us are therapists, but, even personally from my own experience, I've encountered friends who've had those issues, and I was able to, see that was an issue and sort of get the right help. But, sometimes you're not always able to see that. So what advice do you have for the broader community to help and also destigmatize, this issue, because it's unfortunate?
Well, number one, I appreciate you choosing this topic to talk about, because one way is that normalizing the topic. And when we say normalizing the topic is, just talking about it. Like, look, people, some members in our community are really depressed. And if we teach people that depression is due to lack of faith, then what we are telling people is that we want you to suffer in silence. Because nobody wants to come to their religious community and say, by the way, I am deficient when it comes to my faith. Nobody wants to do that. So what we do is that we say that please normalize that, meaning that it is okay. You really can be religious, spiritual, and at the same time, you can have these challenges. These challenges do not really make you a weak person. It does not make you unfaithful. It does not mean that your relationship with God is a terrible one. All it means is that the burden on you at this point is more than you can handle. And the tools that you have are not good enough. So we want to provide you with better tools. So that is number one. Number two, we'll say that mental health is not caused by weak character. It's not a lack of will on your part. You know the saying, we think that we can give our friends a pep talk, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. It sounds good, but you know what, when you're depressed, that's just more of a burden. So I would say, listen to your friends when they come and talk to you about these things. Or co-workers or family members. Please do listen to them, number one. I just mentioned that in the States, the leading cause of death, the third leading cause of death for people between the ages of 18 and 45 is suicide. And 80% of suicide is due to undiagnosed depression. So with this in mind, say, so many people could be saved if, number one, we know what are the symptoms of depression, and when we notice them, we actually bring it up to our friends, to the people that are around us, to our loved ones. And like I said, normalizing it, making sure that in our religious places, the church, the mosque, the synagogue, and the masjid, say that, give sermons, empower the people who come and say that, what, we understand that some of us are suffering, they may be going through this. We just want you to know that there is help that is out there available, and make sure that we become a place that is approachable and also resourceful. We have got to give people resources. So they come, they talk to us. What do I do now that you know? What happens? I don't know. So talking to you is as good as not talking to you, when you really do not, especially if I come and I make it known in my community. And that is where we say that we must have alternatives and resources for people to go to.
So are there any online resources that you can direct, our viewers to, if in case, what are some of those symptoms that we should be looking at for, just to make ourselves a little bit more knowledgeable?
Alrighty, so that's a good question. Personally, I am not a big fan of doing therapy on the
I don't
internet.
mean doing therapy online.
Right.
I just mean like any resources
Right.
to learn more about,
Right. Oh, so I'm not sure about what you have here in Canada, but in the States we have got NAMI, that's like the National Agency for Mental Health Issues, NAMI.org, that would be NAMI, .org. These are places that you can go. And you know what, with the internet nowadays, it's very easy to access so many resources, learn about depression, especially, depending on the age group of your family members. Towards retirement, men have a tendency to be depressed. Postpartum depression is, common amongst women. Young girls have a tendency to also, teen depression or teen anxiety. So these are like good things to really become aware of. And the hope is that, within our community, we can actually provide these services and information.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Yassir. We really appreciate it.